Hello and welcome to The Birth of a New Dimension. My name is Aurora. I call this show Birth of a New Dimension, and I've been doing this for like almost, several years, because we are literally in the process of giving birth to a new level of reality. And this birth process is both collective or planetary and individual. And what is happening, the end result, is the combination of the formerly divergent realms of spirit and matter. And spirit, we can also replace that word with a word like energy or pure consciousness, the realm of the abstract, just pure energy realm, and the realm of matter. So the method or the tool for doing this is a shape that I created and invented and am sharing with the world called the flying rainbow lasagna. And although it's a light-hearted phrase, it's a profound concept, and it's intended to, be helpful to everyone here and in many other places too. I say this all the time, that we are creating the antidote here in the little petri dish of Earth. That the events and the thoughts that we're having here and our emotional response to the very great duress under which we find ourselves is all part of this antidote, because the pathogenic infection of, let's call it malevolent technology, is not just here on this planet, and it's not just in this solar system. It is literally throughout the cosmos. And when I say the cosmos, I'm defining that as more than merely one timeline, not just one universe, but every single version of reality, that this malevolent technology has been distorting the time field, or the field of timelines and possibilities and probabilities, and that affects everyone. This is like the music of life. It's the symphony of the cosmos. And so when something affects everyone, then everyone has a stake in the rectification of what is out of balance, of the thing that's unfair coming to justice. So this is something that is happening right now. What we do on this planet right now reverberates outward in such a way that it helps to heal every other place. Oh, I apologize for my furry overlord barking there. This healing reverberates outward, and it affects not only the other planets of our solar system, it affects other versions of our planet and our individual lives across time. It affects other, places that we would say are very distant in either the definition of time or space. So one of the things I wanted to speak about today is this idea of afterlife, and how that's been a distortion and a set of programs that are not truthful, and that they've been used in order to manipulate humanity. And they're not to be too dualistic, but two basic camps of humanity, because I've just had a lot of insight on this when I was walking my dog the other day, and I thought I want to record about this. And I know it's a little bit different than what I usually do on these radio broadcasts, but please stick with me. So I speak quite often about dark magic, or this malevolent extraterrestrial form of technology that is not run by battery power, like the way that my computer runs on battery power. It runs on electrons flowing in a wire. But non-terrestrial technology runs off of the distorted time field. If we look at the metabolism of time as being, a form of energy, and that taking energy away from certain areas of the time field, like siphoning it off and then misapplying it to other areas, is how some of these space races have been able to achieve like an empire of domination and control. But I don't want you to be unduly impressed by them. I won't call them more advanced or more sophisticated. They're really not. And I've used this analogy quite often, that if you took, an Amazonian Indian, a very, an indigenous person who had not been exposed to a lot of technology from the deep jungles of the Amazon, and you suddenly transported them to the middle of Times Square in New York City, if you didn't tell them anything about the culture or the technology that was being expressed there, they might be unduly impressed. They might say, wow, look at all these lights, look at all this motion, look at all this energy that's being used here. But then if you tell them, oh, well, in order to make this happen, what we have to do is dig these holes, create this pollution, create this refinement process. We've got lots of, belching out of gases and other pollutants as a result of this. Then they might be like, that doesn't actually sound like the actions of a very sophisticated group of beings. So too is it with otherworldly space races that use this form of technology that is based on hijacking or distorting the natural dance movements of DNA across time. That these beings, similar to Times Square, might have enormous edifices, a big clank-clank metal spaceship or some kind of mothership or some kind of huge array or apparatus. And also, it must be noted that these are the type of artifacts of technology that our present level of science can recognize and acknowledge, that there are many aspects of technology that are based purely in consciousness that our present science cannot measure, perceive, or acknowledge. So present science it's really the science of objective materialism. It's really only prepared to deal with the space races that use clank metal technology. And that's a huge issue because the values system of all of those space races is the most barbarian values possible. Like, they're the most infantile of all of the consciousnesses in the cosmos. And it doesn't matter if they have spread themselves across a great area of space and time. Literally, I call them a pathogenic infection, because you don't have to be sophisticated to spread yourself all around. And these are beings that require technology because they're not sophisticated enough to do it on their own without technology. So yeah, I can bring it down to myself, like here on Earth. So I'm not a transhumanist and I don't use technology. And yes, I'm a newcomer to this world and I wasn't born into this body. So I usually say I'm a walk-in or I'm a galactic walk-in. And I really more accurately say that I'm a intelligence on a galactic level that's an abstraction. And right now I'm in a human body. And in order to be in this human body, what I had to do was vibrate the genetic strings, like the guitar strings of this instrument, to play a song that is called the Flying Rainbow Lasagna. And it is a song of great unlikelihood. It's the song where the most unlikely, least probable thing actually happens. So imagine that this is what we are being faced with, as a planet, as a society, as individuals, and even as a solar system and beyond. This sense of being on the cusp of a very crucial event. And in that moment, in that event, anything can happen. It's just like a baby coming out of the birth canal, that it can end in total destruction. If the cord isn't, just the right way, and the cord gets around the baby's neck, then the baby will die. If everything goes in just the right way, then it will be a huge celebration and the baby will come out and it will be a new potential for whole new life. And this is literally what we are being faced with. And the we here is individual humans, but not just humans, the entire biosphere of Earth, like everything that is the collective of organic life on Earth, not just organic life on Earth, well, organic life everywhere, but all other forms of consciousness that are on Earth, like the forms of consciousness that might be held in a crystalline state. Yes, like a quartz or an amethyst crystal can have consciousness inside of it, or minerals, the minerals of a mountain, or the magma inside of a volcano can have consciousness in it. And what we're talking about is a restructuring of reality, not only on our planet, but everywhere, that literally affects everything, every form of consciousness, because it affects the atomic and molecular realm and the behavior of, how atoms bond across time. It affects the DNA realm. It affects the biological mechanics of how we are submerged in time. It affects everything. And so that's what I'm trying to say in terms of using the analogy of an antidote grown in a petri dish, or a set of concepts and behaviors that when we embody that here and then reverberate that outward, it clears this entire pathogenic infection. And this infection is of the use of technology as a compensatory mode, because some people can't do it just with their natural talents and their natural assets. So I also joke about that, the difference between, there are some people on Earth, like, there are some wealthy people or, prominent individuals, let's call them, and they've been given artificial augmentation of their higher faculties. And the higher faculties, this is everything that is, it emanates from your pineal gland, but it's not synonymous with your pineal gland. And it is analogous to your imagination. It's like your reality creation apparatus. It's an aperture that energy enters into, but it's also a projection device. So it's a transceiver, transmitter, and receiver. And the higher faculties, like once you start really activating them, the end result result is what people would call superpowers, like becoming a superhuman individual. So there are some stories about meditators and yogis from the Far East who have done these self-cultivation exercises, and they ended up with what we would call superpowers, like the capacity to move something with their mind, or to spontaneously diagnose and heal another person or themselves, or even to levitate, or to live and subsist and be nourished by only breathing, or, eating sunlight from the stars. Like, there are all of these different things we would call superhuman. These are the type of things that happen when you start to cultivate your higher faculties. But some people have been given or purchased artificial forms of technology that augment their natural faculties. And the technology is not arising on Earth. So this is a big difference. It's a difference between electrons flowing in a wire and trapped and distorted levels of consciousness. And, victimized DNA, like DNA that's imprisoned and is not allowed to act in the way that it naturally would act. So there are people on the surface of Earth right now, prominent individuals with a lot of money or influence, who have been given this malevolent technology as a form of asset augmentation. And I joke and I minimize them and I call them fake boobs, in the same way that some people get breast implants and because they don't have natural assets. Like, some women are born with it naturally, but some women have to pay big money to get it surgically implanted. And there's actually a big difference, not only in the aesthetics, but also, the basic functioning of that. So it's the same thing with people with their neural lace, or whatever the heck you want to call it, this artificial overlay that augments the natural psychic abilities. And some people are like, oh, look at me, I'm so special because I got fake boobs. Literally they've got artificial, synthetic telepathy, and it's not very impressive, and it's not done on a bridge of love. And this is the thing where it starts to go across boundaries. Because if a person has cosmetic surgery, that's merely them deforming or mutilating their own body. That's not them affecting other people with their own self-choice. However, when we get into synthetic telepathy, then it becomes a question of one person is making a choice and it's affecting all the other musicians in the band. Because instead of, here, I got my little piano set up here, instead of playing music that you're supposed to play, like the notes that you're supposed to play, what happens is someone with synthetic technology is playing these horrible notes. And you're with natural technology and you're like, oh, wait, we're trying to play this song over here. And then the synthetic technology people are going, and then it becomes very difficult to keep up a conversation on the topic that you want to talk about with the other people that have natural telepathy. This is the whole thing. I say you're not just swimming around in your own private kiddie pool. You are interactive with an ocean of consciousness, and some of the beings in that ocean of consciousness are other people on the surface of the planet of Earth, and these are the musicians that we're playing with, and we're supposed to share our ideas telepathically on a bridge of love. But there are a lot of people that are here, they're like, I'm a wealthy billionaire and I'm a big jerk face, and I'm going to buy synthetic telepathy, and then I'm going to use it to broadcast my crappy thoughts into other people's brains. And that's the whole point. It's supposed to be that by the time you earn the capacity to broadcast your thoughts outward, your thoughts are those of a virtuoso, a person who has refined themselves, a person who is worthy of being amplified. But like an opera singer who's cultivated their voice and they naturally can project and they don't need, a stupid microphone in front of them so you can hear them. And then there are people that aren't very good at singing. And yeah, they totally need a microphone and an amp so that other people can hear them. And their voices are crappy, or amplifying the worst voices, because those are the beings who have not done the inner work of self-cultivation to be able to do it naturally. So to clarify, all of us have the innate potential. It's not like only some people have this capacity to be telepathic. It's our birthright. Right now, I'm communicating the contents of the inside of my mind and my consciousness to the exterior realm, all of you guys listening, using this hacked linguistic virus, language, the English language. I'm flapping my moving mouth parts to get these ideas from the inside to the outside. That's actually not how we're supposed to communicate. I'm supposed to be able to just beam my thoughts directly into all of your minds, using a bridge of love. And again, when I say love, I'm talking about a tone Love is an actual tone that our non-physical bodies make when we fly through time at just the right rate. And when we make that tone, it allows, it's a miraculous thing. Miraculous things happen in terms of healing and in terms of being able to communicate with other people. So in exactly the same way that there's an energetic safeguard from the structure creator of the cosmos that says, hey, if you need clank technology to jump off the surface of your planet and go meet a bunch of other people, you're not ready to jump off the surface of your planet and go meet a bunch of other people. In exactly the same way, it's like if your mind needs artificial technology to augment, and amplify it, then you're not ready to be augmented and amplified. Basically, by the time you become a virtuoso, then you are able to integrate with the time field, know the right notes or thoughts that you need to play or think, and then do them at the right time. And it's this, harmonic working together. That's what music is. It is harmony. Those notes sound pretty because their sound waves nest together harmonically. And our minds can sound pretty when we, you could call it meta concert, mind concert, telepathic concert, virtuosity in this symphony. And so that's the idea that people who have natural talents and have cultivated their own natural telepathy, we should all be reaching out to one another, attenuating to one another, and connecting on a bridge of love, meaning this equal giving and taking. It's not exploitive. And that's also how I run my classes and everything like that. It's not just like me endlessly sending out. That's a one-way street. Love is the ultimate equal two-way street or form of communication where an equal amount of what you are sending out, you are also receiving back. And so that way it's non-exploitive. It's not burdensome to anyone. So yeah, all of these natural telepaths, and it's not just human. Elephants. You can have natural telepathy with elephants and blue whales and hives of bees and the microbes in your tummy. I mean, imagine what that is like. Fruit flies, redwood trees. You can be telepathic with this entire symphony of life. And you better believe that these redwood trees and fruit flies are not getting little tiny neural implants that artificially augment their telepathy so that they can talk and hear one another. No, that's like the crappiest members of our society, corrupt politicians and the psychopathic military people that, sociopaths that want to kill and murder, like the worst musicians, the people that are least qualified to reach into someone else's mind. Because if you reach into someone else's mind, it's like you can't just go bashing around and, smash a bunch of china. You can't do that. It's like everybody has these delicate inner structures that it's totally, it's beyond physical rape to treat someone like that. If you can, how horrible and against boundaries and shattering it can be to be physically raped if you force your way into another person's mind or consciousness. Think about all the delicate consciousness structures that are there. It is an equally horrible form of boundary crossing and torment. So yes, the very worst people have become technologically augmented and they're doing unloving telepathy. Oh, P.S. Brief aside, you don't have to just let them do this. You don't have to just sit there and be a victim, and I'm trying to give everybody all of the essential tools so that you can more happily and comfortably navigate the time field. So yeah, big thing is, I hate the idea of like Zen. You have to Zen your way through something. Like you're just going to sit there and be beaten and demoralized and degraded, but you're just going to have to Zen your way through it. Like, no. That's not what this is about at all. Once you are aware of these huge injustices that are being perpetrated against you or against others, then it is your opportunity or your duty, like your obligation, to change the things that are going on and to say, no, I don't want this shit to be happening to me anymore. Pardon my French. So one of the things that you can do if you are a natural telepath and you're being attacked or assaulted or have someone trying to force their way into your mind structure using synthetic telepathy, one technique that I've developed that's very effective, because, bullies don't stop just because you ask them too nicely. Like, oh, please, Mr. Bully, please stop giving me noogies and, punching me and stealing my lunch money. That does not make them stop. So in this case, in many cases, it is necessary to exert some form of dominance or forcefulness to the bully. And I don't want anybody, again, to think like, oh, you have to be a non-violent doormat. This is not the realm of the physical realm. So again, in the physical realm, I don't advocate for punching people in the nose or getting your AK-47 and Dwayne Hublering, just blowing away people, anyone who you think is unworthy of being in reality. No, no, no. However, in the psychic realm, this is like the realm of pure thought and pure consciousness. Similar levels of aggression exist. And I do not say to anyone that you have to just lie down and take it, or just run away, or just ask them nicely to stop. Like, you can hear the sarcasm in my voice. No, no, no. You get to be a total badass. You get to be a badass and fight back with everything that you have. And the things that we use to fight are our willpower, like the sense of your inner strength, your own personal integrity, your mind, your consciousness, your own heart, like unconditional love and connection to the divine, and that those inner sources of energy. Notice I didn't say anything that's external. I didn't say, oh yeah, what we use to fight is an external battery pack, like something that you can go and buy at the hardware store, or that you get a magical elixir from an alchemist or something like that. That's not what you use to fight. The things that real telepaths, that, natural, non-augmented people use are, the things that essentially we are born with, our birthday suit, our innate divine connection. And yeah, that's always more powerful and more satisfying and more, just fundamentally more powerful than anything that is a technological overlay. Brief pause. Okay, so on the surface of our planet, we have a favored class that has more money and more power and has been given the capacity to artificially augment its natural telepathy. And then we also have natural telepaths, many of whom are not part of the favored class and do not have huge offshore bank accounts or gold doubloons piled up underneath their bed or anything like that. And so what the main crux of what I wanted to speak about is this idea of some people who do not, who have over amassed resources beyond what they need for themselves, and that those are the beings who are least worthy of amassing large surpluses of resources. And these are the same beings that have the synthetic telepathy. And that the lie that has been given to these beings is somewhere along the lines of that they get to have a favored position in the time field, like when you have a body and when you're incarnated and alive, and that after death, that this technology would also give a superior position to those particular people, to those particular consciousnesses. This is the idea that those same people that have been given neural implants for synthetic telepathy say to them, oh yeah, and if you're a really good boy or girl during your life, and if you really, screw over other humans, and if you're really treasonous to your species, then when you die, you won't really die. You'll be uploaded to a fake virtual reality where we'll make sure to give you a real cushy existence. Oh, I just realized that I have to rewind and go back to, what do you do when one of these synthetic telepaths attacks you as a natural telepath? You don't have to sit there and take it. You don't have to be a victim. So what I've done is set up a feedback loop. And a lot of the times I use music in order to inspire my journey and, give me the energy to do the things that I do. So in order to do this, I was being heavily attacked by, let's just say, a member of the deep state. They're some of the beings that have these, fake boobs, neural implant augmentation fakery. And I was quite, let's just say I've had it. I had it with this level of attack. So I put on some really wonderful Jimi Hendrix music. And I love how Jimi Hendrix, not only was very innovative as a musician, but he sometimes used feedback as an aspect of the sonic landscape intentionally. And I created a feedback loop between my own brain and my own transceiver of natural telepathy, my assailant's own brain and natural transceiver of natural telepathy, and my assailant's synthetic transceiver of synthetic telepathy. In the same way that you can create a feedback loop between guitar, microphone, and amp. And when that happens, one little sound gets amplified and amplified and amplified. If you do it so much, it will totally blast out the speakers of the amp. And if you do this in the right way, part of it has to do with the envisionment of the Merkaba as a reflector, like a mirror that can reflect back energy that is coming towards you. But then part of it also has to do with understanding, kind of like we could call it the electrical wiring of this form of telepathy, and how to create this feedback loop so that what the assailant is sending out keeps getting reflected back to them and then amplified. But there's a tiny difference between their natural telepathy, which is not augmented, and their augmented synthetic telepathy. And it's like if you have your washing machine with all of the clothes bunched up on one side and it goes out of balance and it kind of spins around and goes ka-chunka, chunka, 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 chunka. And if it keeps going, then it totally is so perturbed that it can destroy the entire machine. That is how you burn out someone's synthetic telepathy. So you set up this feedback loop, you're protecting your own mind and your own natural transceiver, and you keep on sending back the attacks, and the attacks keep on sending the assailant's apparatus out of balance, more out of balance, more out of balance, and you can do it to the point where their neural lace, or whatever word we are using for it, gets burnt out. The circuit becomes overwhelmed, and the delicate aspects of technology become rendered moot, and they no longer function. So there are things that an individual can do, and that's just one that I developed spontaneously. It's why I also like Jimi Hendrix and his music. A lot of what he did was spontaneous. He didn't exactly sit down, write down the musical score, know every single note that he was going to play. He did a lot of working on the fly, like doing things in the moment. And that is how I work with a lot of these, responses to being telepathically assaulted, I guess is the best word for it. Because you're probably not going to read about this in a book. It's probably not going to be presented like, in order to protect yourself from synthetic telepathic assailants, what you need to do is blah, blah, blah. So a lot of it, it's like making up a recipe with whatever you got in the fridge, or one of these, a TV show, like challenges. You are given this, and this, make something out of it. So that is what this type of creation and virtuosity is like. So now back to this idea of those very self-same people on the surface of Earth who have been able to purchase synthetic telepathy from malevolent, non-terrestrial beings who are absolutely trying to control the power structure on Earth. I mean, think about it. If you came from another planet or came from another world and you went to a less technologically developed planet and you're like, okay, I'm totally going to screw with the social dynamic and the economic dynamic. I'm going to give these people over here whatever, disposable lighters so that they can light as many fires as they want. And these people over here will still have to rub two sticks together. Like, you're clearly exacerbating class differences and whatever type of sociological differences and iniquities exist. So that's definitely what's been going on our planet in terms of telepathy. And this is also why natural telepaths would be targeted and assaulted, because that's like part of this consolidation of power, only allowing beings who have the synthetic augmentation to be able to use their higher faculties. When you use your higher faculties, it's hugely empowering because you can see time. You can see what's going on through time. In some of these superhero, movies and TV shows and stuff like that, there's this question, who's the most powerful superhero? How about someone who has big muscles like the Hulk? How about someone who can shoot laser beams out of their eyes, like the Cyclops? No, those guys are not the most powerful. The most powerful superheroes are the ones who can control and rearrange time. And sometimes they're the nerdiest little, most unassuming superheroes. But if you can press pause on time, and then you can walk around in that paused time frame, then you can rearrange reality. You can, block off the person who's trying to kill you. You can move them miles away. You can do anything if you can, control and manipulate time. And think about how powerful it is as a superhero if you can reweave the time field. If you can be like, okay, I'm going to press pause on this battle where people are shooting laser beams out of their eyes and using their giant Hulk muscles, and I'm going to say, let's look at the series of events that led up to this moment. Then I'm going to say, well, what type of changes would I have to input into these events, maybe moments, days, or decades ago, in order to have this moment be different? Because if that guy over there got a flat tire, he couldn't be here at the battle today in order to shoot laser beams out of his eyes. Or how about if the umbilical cord wrapped around his neck at birth, he would never survive to be able to be here to shoot laser beams out of his eyes. So that I'm just using these as pop cultural examples of how we become hugely empowered when we activate our higher faculties, when we are able to begin to perceive the time field and effectively navigate and even sculpt the time field. Sculpting the time field, this is like being a musician who responds to the musical score and even sometimes innovates and writes new melodies. So we have this group of people who have notoriety and money on earth, and they've been falsely elevated by malevolent users of, satanic technology, this exotic, otherworldly technology that doesn't run on electrons, that runs on misery, essentially. And those beings have no problem at all with saying that they deserve to have millions or billions of dollars, that they have a mental construct that says, even though they are the least well-developed people, it's like, imagine someone who's never done any work, training to be a ballerina. Like they only sat on the couch and ate donuts, and they never got up and did a pirouette, and they never were able to stand on point, on their tippy toes ever. And then contrast that with people who are real ballerinas, who have done all of the exercise and all of the dancing, and they've learned to whirl and twirl, and they can balance on their tippy toes, and their muscles are super strong, and their spine is very strong. Like, these are totally different types of people. But I'm describing the person who's sitting on the couch. That's the person who has synthetic telepathy. They're like, oh, big fat couch dweller. They don't know how to do tippy toe twirling and ballet movements. They're just going to buy it, and they're going to buy it and do it in the cheap, easy way. Like, that's literally the cheap, easy way. And then they're told a fake story that's like this: you're really special, and you're really talented and gifted, and you're deserving of so much more, like more than the common man, quote unquote. So those beings have absolutely no problem with the inner justification system that says that they deserve to have a big fat bank account. They're like, oh yes, we deserve to have all this money. We deserve to buy synthetic telepathy. And then they even think in terms of when they no longer have a physical body, that they deserve preferential treatment in afterlife. And you can think of some politicians too. Politicians are really hugely corrupt right now. And most of them, they think like, yeah, it's totally appropriate to have one set of laws for quote unquote the common man and one set of laws for me. And regular people have to go, drive through traffic, but I've got my chauffeur to drive me to my very special job because I'm such a special VIP. I can't waste my time driving through traffic or sitting on a bus or something like that. So I have to be certain to have my chauffeur drive me. And I have my offshore accounts because, of course, I've gotten all of these slush fund payments, but I'm just not a regular person that has to report all this to the IRS. I'm a special person that gets to put it in offshore accounts. And that mentality that I'm describing is the same mentality that says, oh, yes. So then these are what these people think, not what I think or advocate, but they think, oh, yes, when technology completely takes over and supersedes the biosphere, technology is going to give me a cushy job at the top. When I die and I'm uploaded to an artificial virtual reality fantasy land. Again, I'm paraphrasing. This is not me, Aurora, speaking. This is me in the voice of a hugely corrupt, fat-ass politician. They think, yes, I will be saved. Like, my mind is so special and so worthy of continuing onward that the hard drive of my personality will be saved, and I'll be uploaded into a special, virtual reality, as I described, where I'll be on top of the heap, like on the top of the ice cream sundae, like the cherry, as opposed to, slogging it through at the bottom of the social structure. And the real truth is that everybody who thinks that they're going to be uploaded into some better social structure, like, you're going to be uploaded, all right, but everybody's going to be screwed equally. Like, that's the big ironic, if you indulge in Schadenfreude, that is what will make you feel happy. The idea that these elevated political, losers on the surface of Earth, that they think, when their technological master, when they leave their bodies, and their technological master, whom they have been serving during their incarnated experience in the time field, when they go into this afterlife, that's like a technological holodeck or something like that, they actually think that they're going to get preferential treatment, but when they get there, it's like, wah, wah, time for you to be tortured along with all the rest of the lame-ass losers that found themselves here. All the people that like basically got tricked into being there, because many people become traitors to not only their physicality, their physical bodies. If you decide to ingest some kind of metallic goo or whatever, because you think it's going to make you super smart and telepathic, that's being a traitor to your natural body. It's like saying your natural body and the format of your natural body is not enough, and that you need some form of technology to rectify your limitations and constraints, or the things that you're just not good at. And I'm trying to say that we all have within us these amazing levels of potential that have not been explored effectively. Like we have, because our genes have been diminished. If we were to fully fix and heal our genetic code, we would all be as healthy and vital as Olympic athletes. Like we could all run 100 miles in a day. And let me just say briefly, there is a group of indigenous people called the Tarahumara. They are from northern Mexico. They live in a very unforgiving desert climate, and they have natural abilities to run 100 miles. And it's not an ego thing. They don't run it like a race to see who can do it and who can do it faster. It's just a very natural part of who they are and what they do. And it's natural for pregnant women to run, and the whole village runs. They all run together. So I'm trying to say that, what is considered to be a superhuman capacity in some limited and constrained formats is really a birthright. So this idea also of being able to see across time. I know there's a motorcycle outside. It's very loud. Right now, there are some people who make their whole professional life on selling readings. Like they'll tell you who you were in a past life, and they'll tell you who you will be in the future or what's coming in your future. I don't advocate this at all, and I don't do it either. I think it's highly unethical. But that's the whole idea of like trying to say like, I don't have these faculties, but I'll pay someone who does have this inner insight to tell me what's going on. And people do this all the time. They do it with astrologers. So give me an astrology reading. They're like, I don't know how to read a chart, but you read my chart for me and tell me what's coming in my future. Like that's that whole idea of doing that, like acquiescing your power and giving it over to someone else and then believing what they tell you about yourself. Okay, so wait, I have to speak also a little bit now about the converse. There are people that are on the surface of our planet who they're the beings who are falsely elevated, who I've just described extensively, but then there are also beings who are falsely suppressed. And these are beings who have natural telepathy, and they should be theoretically the most famous and, abundant people on the planet. These should be the people that have the millions and billions of dollars because they have great ideas, and they have ideas for stories, movies, music, artwork that other lame-ass people with fake boobs can't do and don't know how to do. And the difficulty or the problem with those people is that due to the story of what I'm now defining as the Roman Jesus, because again, this is not true Christ. So I wear a cross, and I wear that in order to reclaim this symbol from the religion. I'm not affiliated with the religion of Christianity at all, or any church or any doctrine, but I'm here to I had a direct, or still continue to have a direct experience of and connection with Christ consciousness, which is an abstract galactic level of perception and information sharing. And that is what that symbol represents to me. So there are a lot of people that are believing in the false version, like the story of a man who was crucified, and the I'm not saying that really, okay, I'm stumbling all over this. The story of the man who was crucified was hijacked and distorted by the political agenda of the Roman Church, and that's why I call it Roman Jesus. We can say at this point that it's as truthful as any, comic book superhero character, because whereas there probably was, I believe there was, an actual physical embodied teacher that was an embodiment of Christ consciousness, and there have been many teachers across many cultures many, many times. This particular teacher, they distorted, took elements from and edited what this person actually taught, and then totally changed and subverted the message. And the big one was saying that this person was crucified and that suffering is necessary and poverty is noble. So this is what I'm trying to get across. The idea that there are those beings on the surface of Earth right now who are totally fat-ass billionaires, and they've bought synthetic telepathy, and they feel entitled, and they feel like it's right for them to have more resources than everyone else, and that they think they'll be uploaded at the top of the heap when everything, goes kablooey, and they're only too happy to contribute to the system going kablooey. And then there are beings that are following the false program of what I'm defining as Roman Jesus, which is not pure Christ consciousness, which is the story told by the Roman Church that basically says to you, you're a good person if you live in poverty, that you're supposed to accept your poverty because you're going to get your reward in the afterlife. And so if you see the similarity between these two value systems, they both have the same end result. One is the super wealthy saying, yes, you are super wealthy, and one day if you serve your Luciferian master well, you'll be uploaded to a virtual reality fantasy land where you'll be, have everything you want on the holodeck, and whatever, you can be unimpeded and unconstrained. Maybe you can fly by flapping your wings on the holodeck. And then there are the other beings that are also told, oh yes, even though you're struggling in dire and severe poverty in the physical world, one day you'll die and you'll go to heaven, or man with a beard will return, and then you'll have a jubilee on earth, and then you'll finally have enough money to pay your bills. You'll finally have enough money to have heat and stay warm. Like, you'll finally be able to feed your children effectively. And that those people also, in a similar out of balance way, accept the iniquity. That just like there are the people that are only too happy, like I was using the analogy, the ballerinas that are only on the couch, those ballerinas, they need like a forklift to lift them off the couch, and literally an artificial exoskeleton applied to their legs and their toes to make them be able to stand on point. But they're like, look, I'm standing on point. Like, and you can imagine, some kind of like cyborg ballet slippers that keep them balanced up there. And it's like, yeah, you're totally fooling yourself. You haven't done any of the work. You don't have the natural muscles. The only way that you're balancing on point is because you've got a forklift holding you up there. And those beings are only too happy to think and believe that they'll be uploaded in a superior status in this virtual reality afterlife. And then there are the other beings that are like, we are noble, we are suffering, we're poor, we're noble because we suffer and we're poor, and we accept that these other people are really fat and wealthy ballerinas that sit on the couch and do nothing and aren't good, and we allow them to have all of that money because we think we're going to get our wonderful reward in the afterlife, wonderful Jesus heaven afterlife, and that they're going to get punished in their afterlife. And the big joke is that everybody would go to the same afterlife, and it's the humanity slush fund. Everybody goes there and is harvested of misery the way a cow is milked of its milk from its udders. That's the big joke. And so I'm trying to say with this, when, like I told you, I was walking my dog and had these insights and I wanted to record, and I try to make these recordings like standalone so that you can understand if this is the only version that you ever listen to, if you never listen to any of my other stuff. But I wanted to get across this idea of how destructive this misapplication of the idea of afterlife has been in terms of affecting people's behavior who are still incarnated, who are still in the time field. How these two programs are kind of like two sides of the same coin. The undeserving billionaires who have way more than they need and feel justified in it, and those who are truly deserving and who recognize the iniquity of the economic system and who allow it to continue because they think that it speaks to some form of their own nobility. The idea of taking a vow of poverty like some holy people do, or people who are good and they work for a nonprofit and they're like, always going to be struggling with their bills. I mean, I know a lot of good people that are like this, where they're working for a nonprofit or some charity or something like that, and so they don't have a huge salary, so they don't have a lot of money, and yeah, if they have a problem with their car, then they have to have a GoFundMe campaign to get their car fixed. And it's like they're trying to help other people, they're trying to be charitable, and they barely have enough money to be able to continue, living in society. And that is not the way it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be that if you are the ballerina that's done all the muscle work and you can stand on your tiptoes, that you get to have the money. And so anybody who's sitting around and saying, oh yes, that they accept these levels of social iniquity, and they accept their poverty, and they accept that that's just the way the financial system is run. Like, yep, these satanic, like I want to say losers, satanic effing losers over here are the ones who get all of the notoriety, good gigs, money, good jobs, and then, investments. And then these people that are the good people over here are the people that are barely making it, living on rice and beans, trying to, cobble their existence together and share with each other as much as they can. I mean, that's very much like what the people that I knew in Woodstock were living like. I lived in Woodstock like 5 or 6 years ago, and I lived there for about 10 years, and there were huge levels of financial iniquity. It was very out of balance, where there were some people that had a second home in Woodstock, and they also had a first home in New York City, and they were stockbrokers, and they had plenty of everything. And then there were some people who were just barely living hand to mouth, and they might be a gardener or a cleaning lady or something like that. And that the people who were barely living hand to mouth somehow accepted the nobility of their position, thinking that they were better people because they had access to fewer resources. And I'm like, no, the people that have done the real muscle work and are the real ballerinas of the mind are the people who should have the money, are the people who should be creating and running companies because of the values system that would be reflected in their companies. And the reason why the companies that are large, official formal corporations have these values systems that are like parasitic and totally uncompassionate is because they reflect the values of the people who incepted them, which are also parasitic and totally not compassionate. So the takeaway that I would like for everyone who's listening to this recording is the idea that being embodied is an incredible opportunity. That so many people who are embodied think, oh, this is just the boring stuff that I have to go through until I finally get to die and go somewhere interesting. And I'm like, no. This stuff that we're doing right here in the physical embodied realm of incarnation is incredibly important. It's not just the boring stuff that we're doing or the boring stage where we have to be a caterpillar and then transform into a butterfly where we finally start to be free and have fun. That's the idea that so many people look at this like this is the time of being imprisoned or the choreful time or the time of drudgery, and that's not what it's supposed to be. This is supposed to be an amazing time of exploration and self-expression and creativity, and it's only because people have accepted these basic flawed programs, like a software program. Even though I'm not a transhumanist, I don't say that you're just like a computer, but what we have are the same unhealthy software program is running between people who do not deserve to have a lot and they think that they should go to an afterlife and live at the top of the heap, and then people who do deserve to have a lot, but because they believe in some falsehoods, some basic flawed premises, they don't have what they deserve and they aren't fighting for it. Because what we should all be doing, if you are a person who is not corrupt and who has integrity, is saying, hey, that guy over there, he's a fat ass billionaire because he stole all this money from over here, because he did this thing that is illegal, because he has these offshore holdings over here. And that's, what's supposed to bring balance to our world, but we don't have that. Instead, we have, of course, billionaires covering for each other in terms of, high level people who are in law enforcement. I'm talking like at the head of the FBI or the CIA. Those people have plenty of money and they, of course, cover for the other people who have plenty of money. But I'm also speaking about people who are just on a regular level, that if you are whatever, a plumber or a teacher or any kind of just regular position like that, You should not accept, oh yes, these wealthy billionaires that have horrible values and no morals, that they're supposed to have what they have, and that it's appropriate for these lobbyists to buy off these lawmakers, and that this is just the way it is. That's the big thing, that there's all these people who consider themselves quote unquote good Christians, and they're just going around doing their charitable acts and working for their local church and trying to help people in their community, and meanwhile allowing and understanding and allowing to fester all of these levels of iniquity at other, expressed in other levels of society. We're not supposed to do that at all. That's the whole idea of, like I said, you don't have to just zen your way through. You don't have to just say, hey, yes, I know I'm being beaten on the head with a bamboo stick, but I'm just going to sit here quietly, peacefully meditating. That's the whole point. That attitude is what has allowed these horrible practices to fester and to continue for so long. So in exactly the same way that setting up the psychic feedback loop is an effective tool against individual psychic attacks, what needs to happen in terms of rectifying the social and economic situation is the people who are experiencing injustice and not having enough resources all need to get together and work together in order to rectify and reclaim what is being taken from them. Like, no, you don't have to just sit around and wait for some, wealthy judge or lawmaker to finally enforce the laws that are supposed to be that's what I'm trying to say, that this is now a time of being active instead of passive. That being passive and simply allowing that means that you're contributing to the ugliness of this cosmic mural that we find ourselves in, like this cosmic collaborative visual art project. You can't just be like, look, that guy's painting with some ugly spray paint and I'm just letting it happen because I'm a good Christian. Like, no, that's not actually what a good Christian would do. What a good Christian would do is utilize one's higher faculties. Because if you're a Christian, it means that you're associated with Christ consciousness and you've opened your inner eye and your inner aperture and you can see through time. Theoretically, all of the real Christians are way more powerful and threatening to the system because all the real Christians can see through time and can see the possibilities of the future and can see what needs to be done right now in order to rectify the time field. So being a real Christian, to me, it doesn't have anything to do with worshiping a man with a beard or participating in the dogma of a particular established church. To me, it has everything to do with self-cultivation to the point of awakening the inner higher faculties and then being able to perceive the time field directly and then taking those inner directives from, a higher consciousness source or from yourself in the future that says, here's what you need to do in the time field. Like, here's what you need to think and say and do in each moment in order to rectify what needs to be healed. As opposed to people that are just like, I'm just going to live my life and be quietly good and wait for a man with a beard in the sky to come and save us all. It's not what we're supposed to be doing, in my opinion. What we're supposed to be doing is becoming that meta entity. We're supposed to be becoming that larger structure of consciousness by identifying with it, like saying, I'm one individual cell or a single cell of a much larger multicellular body, and the multicellular body is Christ consciousness. So yeah, and on the topic of afterlife is very real, but I think all the things that people want and desire and expect to get in afterlife, you can get in the physical embodiment. But we need to redefine what physical embodiment is, and this is what I'm talking about when I talk all about flying rainbow lasagna. The idea that by doing a new genetic dance, we can redefine what it is to have the experience of being in a body. We can run new genetic programs. Imagine how heavenly it would be on earth in the body if you no longer had to experience discomfort or dis-ease. And as you moved through chronological time, you didn't necessarily become older, more decrepit, or lose your vitality, but that you stayed healthy and vital and had a wonderful euphoric bodily experience just by being in the time field. That would be like heaven. Most people here right now in this time and place have to take some kind of an external drug or do something in order to feel a euphoric feeling. And it only lasts for a little bit of time and then it's back to their usual horrible, feelings and perception. And it's like, if we lived in a heavenly realm, being in the body would naturally feel wonderful and euphoric and happy and good and peaceful and all the things that people desire that they think will happen in a heavenly afterlife. So that's that basic flawed program that I feel that people are running. The idea that you have to die to achieve a utopian immortality existence. And I'm saying, no. In order to achieve a utopian immortality existence, what you need to do is stay alive and heal and rectify the time field. And we do this, and it's too extensive for me to just fit into the next 5 minutes of this recording. But in order to heal and rectify the time field, first, you work with your individual instrument of your physical body, your own individual body. Then you begin to work with the biosphere around you, all of the other plants, animals, microbes, and other people around you. And then you begin to act across time. You can bond with molecules that existed many years ago in deep antiquity, or you can bond with molecules that will exist in the far distant future. And same thing with getting new ideas and let's say information that can fix whatever is going on. That information might exist in deep antiquity, or it might not yet exist in the far distant future. And when you Flying Rainbow Lasagna, what you can do is take these inspirations from these various different points in time and apply it right now. So I say this all the time. Each one of us has, as an innate version of ourselves on a timeline, an aspect of self that has already reached the final denouement, that has already reached what we would call a perfected state, or a state of divine union, or the version of the term paper of you that has no spelling mistakes, no grammar mistakes, is perfect, perfect ego. It's your version of yourself as an ascended master. And that what we can each do is connect with that version of self and receive all of the information, guidance in terms of what we should be doing and thinking and feeling here, everything that we need to become that version of self. It's kind of like a feedback loop over time, that the future version of you is divine and perfect and sends back love and guidance and information and inspiration to this version of yourself that is still going through the refinement process, and that it's that love, giving and taking, that brings us into that perfected state. And it doesn't involve any intermediaries. No intercession of saints, no Roman Jesus, no priesthood, nothing that has to come between you and this version of yourself that is this divine, perfected version. I mean, that's what the real story here is. It's an individual journey, but it's also a collective journey. And when each one of us reaches that moment, completes the circuit, when each one of us completes that circuit, we have the thought, and that is very true and profound, that says, quote unquote, I am God. And it's not thinking, to clear things up here, thinking Aurora is God, but so is everyone else, so is all other consciousness, so is everything else. So imagine, just believe on this note, imagine what it would be like if suddenly at the same time, all of the consciousness that was here on this planet and in existence reached that final moment, focused in terms of laser-like coherence, and had the thought, I am God. It would be like the most amazing music, where all of the musicians suddenly got together, synced up, and started playing, and we would have a complete utopian revolution. So that's a good note to end on. Thank you so much for everyone who's been with me on this journey.